What y'all gonna learn today? Welcome to Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. I am your host, Jay, with your favorite co-host, Jimmy. We can be found wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to, as well as on YouTube by searching for our name, Unfair Sports. So while you're there, like, subscribe, comment, follow, rate us and review us, and give us 5 stars. You don't think we deserve it? Man, give us 5 anyway.
Gifted.
So on today's episode of Unfair Sports, we're going to jump into what's happening in Baltimore to the Ravens. Is Deshaun Watson on the move? Previewing the college football season, as well as Patriots struggling with their quarterback decision. Sounds kind of opposite. Anyway, hit us up on the Unfair fan line, 430-901-1906, and let us know what you think of the show. Give us your strongest opinions. You might end up on the show. We'll take some of that and add it too, especially we'll be doubling down on this during the football season. So hit us up, 430-901-1906.
Man, Jam Raster,
Rastafari.
What's going on, man?
What it do, baby? Jimmy.
Yes.
We are here.
Finally.
We are at the promised land.
Yes.
Labor Day weekend is coming up. And that means what? College football's opening weekend. So we get Smash Mouth football. Well, okay, let me pull back. Week 0 was last week. I don't think we're going to really talk much about that. We may mention a little bit of it during the preview.
Appetizer
during the preview. We may say 1 or 2 things about it, because I do have one comment in regards to it. But for the most part, we are now starting college football season. We are here in football season. It is fall football season. It's going to start cooling off. The leaves are going to start turning colors, and I don't know how to contain myself.
And when you think about it, too, college football got here really fast. Like, it seems like the sports season through the summer actually went by. Part of the reason why is because we had the NBA playoffs and the NBA finals a little bit later than what we're used to.
Right. I think the biggest struggle to me for the summer is that we really didn't get a quote unquote break. It's like the NBA just is like the NBA season never stopped. At least it feels like.
You had the draft after that. You had free agency, and then before you knew it, NFL was in training camp, and the college football season was getting ready to kick off, and it did. Week 0. Yeah. It's almost like week 0 is like it happened, but it didn't happen.
And my hands just, I don't know, do my hands anymore at that point. You just
wake up on Saturday morning, you're like, week 0?
Week 0? What? Week 0? Yeah. I'm weak.
Exactly.
You're weak. But let's talk about some weaknesses that we're dealing with right now. Baltimore. First and foremost, New Orleans, we are praying for you. Everybody in the Gulf Coast, we are praying for you. You are in our hearts, especially because Hurricane Ida, Gallagher, Ida is out here taking us out. We will pray continuously for you all. Hopefully we get power back in New Orleans or whatnot and all that jazz. So if you got family and friends, if you're listening to the show and you know people out there, please reach out and check on them. It's pretty crazy how that storm just destroyed a good portion of the city.
And on the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina as well.
On the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Yeah. Wow. This is I'm learning new things the more you know. So with that, catastrophes are happening all over the place. So in Baltimore, we're dealing with a lot of serious situations. First, the preseason started off with Marquise Brown being hurt with a hamstring injury roughly a month ago, and he's still down and not really doing very well with that.
And I accidentally drafted him in my $50 league. Well, that's my 4th receiver, but still every position counts.
Every position counts. So I got to figure that out. You do. Their first-round draft pick, Rashad Bateman, may miss their opener after having surgery on his groin. So another soft tissue injury. That seems a little disturbing. And then Sunday, J.K. Dobbins goes out, hits the ground, grabs his knee, and it looks like a season-ending ACL tear. He is on the IR, so they do expect him to be done for the year. And so the Ravens are dealing with a lot of stuff. And then you had reports that came out on top of this that an NFL executive thinks that the NFL has figured out our boy Lamar Jackson. So, Jimmy, with these plethora of injuries here, let's start with this. Is it fair to say that the Ravens are in trouble?
The Ravens are in serious trouble. You mentioned Marquise Brown. and the injury that he was already dealing with. Hollywood Brown around here and around where he's from.
Around here. Around here.
Ours are tripping me up today. Right? So, yeah, you have that. You're dealing with that. Rashad Bateman, like you mentioned, you're dealing with that. So, on top of that, the last thing you needed was another major injury to a starter, especially an offensive starter, especially given that now you have people talking about, like you said, that Lamar Jackson has been figured out. So I don't know if you knew this or not. A lot of you in the audience listening or watching this wherever you watch our videos probably didn't know that Baltimore was working on a preseason game winning streak. I think leading up into this game, they had won 19 preseason games in a row, and I think they were going for the record.
They did, and they got the record.
And they got the record, 20 preseason games in a row by beating the Washington football team 37-3. And
good God.
Yeah. So
Huntley was eating.
He was. He actually looked like Lamar out there running around at times. But I hope it was worth it, John Harbaugh. I hope it was worth it, you losing your ready to emerge as a star running back, second-year running back, in pursuit of this record, because you got the record. So I hope it was worth it, because now you have absolutely no chance to compete in the AFC playoffs just by losing him, because he's such an all-purpose back, because he's a good blocker, because he's a good runner, because he does so many things. And when you combine that with what Lamar Jackson can do and what you're trying to do in the passing game by adding these receivers that you did in the draft, in addition to Tylen Wallace from Oklahoma State, he would have made your offense that much more dynamic. And you're going to need that dynamic quality when you come up against a Kansas City Chiefs team that you can't figure out, as well as the Buffalo Bills. And hell, you may even run into the Tennessee Titans for a third playoffs in a row?
Right.
So I hope it was worth it. This was a huge mistake. And when John Harbaugh talked about this, one of the things that he said in order to defend it is that the Ravens were among the teams who played their starters the least in the preseason. Well, why does any team not play their starters in the preseason? It's for two reasons. One, because they're veterans and they don't need it. I understand J.K. Dobbins, you wouldn't consider him a veteran quite yet.
Only in second year.
Yeah, only in his second year. But he's a professional. He's good. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's in shape. He's going to be ready, would have been ready to go by week one. So it's either that or it's to prevent injury. So if you were already playing them the least, then you had some idea of what you were trying to prevent from happening. Right. So then if you're doing that, it makes no sense to put them in there in what really should be a meaningless preseason game, but you made it meaningful because you wanted that record. And now I hope it was worth it. So this is a huge mistake. This says something. Baltimore Ravens fans have to be sick right now. And I know there are more important things in the world to worry about. This is just football, so it's not that serious. But as far as being a Ravens fan on Sunday, going into this, you knew how important J.K. Dobbins was. And now that he's not there, you know that your team has no shot to win a Super Bowl.
I don't know about that. Ball is life, so I understand people being upset and everything with that. But, honestly, I think it's unfair. I think they're fine. I think they'll be just fine. This is one reason why. One, Vegas odds. You know what the odds are for the Ravens to win the AFC North?
No.
They're still a plus 115.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't even move when they lost J.K. Dobbins. Mm-hmm. So Vegas believes they'll be just fine. They believe that they're still the favorites to win it with the Cleveland Browns right behind them at plus 140. I agree with Vegas. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Mainly because I don't think the NFL has figured out Lamar Jackson. And we're going to talk about him a lot more when it comes to that, and this executive that thinks this mess. Mm-hmm. But their running game is literally Lamar Jackson and then a stable of backs. Gus Edwards is going to get the bulk of the carries like he did last year. Mm-hmm. Dobbins, of course, was a little bit more versatile out there, but they'll probably pick up somebody else. Maybe grab a Todd Gurley, make him more of a Thunder-type runner. Maybe go get Adrian Peterson, something like that. Because I heard that they had Gurley there. I think they brought him in for free agency, but Gurley decided not to jump in. He wasn't ready yet, and he said he wasn't taking anything. But they're going to call him back, bring him back in. Gurley's had some time to rest that knee. He'll get out there, and I think he'll be just fine. I think that we're underestimating the abilities of this team. The Ravens, to me, have improved defensively. I think they're going to be better prepared this season than they were before. And at the same time, I don't get why we think that Lamar Jackson is quote unquote handicapped out here. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, all the Ravens have to do now is add to their passing game. Like, he has so much more potential in the passing game, in my personal opinion, that they just have to tap. Now they have a reason to. You ain't got as many running backs. So you may as well start throwing the ball more instead of relying heavily on the run like they were before.
Well, with the Lamar piece, when this executive said that the Ravens have been figured out, what do you think he was talking about? Well, that Lamar's been figured out. What do you think he was talking about? Do you think he's talking about more Lamar as a passer or more Lamar as a runner?
Let me see. Fowler from ESP, Jeremy Fowler, was saying this. He said a lot of people around the league that I speak to that are talking a little slick. They're saying this might be the year that everyone figures out Lamar Jackson. So this is the year. They're sort of feeling right now he can definitely prove that wrong, but I think there's a bit of pressure on him right now, in which we need to talk about pressure on quarterbacks. We'll talk about that in another segment another day. But they're thinking that this is the year that everybody's going to figure him out. Now, without J.K. Dobbins, to be absolutely honest, I think that makes it a lot harder to figure him out. They're going to have to be more creative with things. They don't have that stable of running backs because they don't have Mark Ingram anymore. Now they have J.K. Dobbins with just Gus Edwards and Lamar Jackson. Don't you think that the Ravens are going to actually, I mean, isn't Greg Roman going to be smart and realize that, hey, let me switch things up to make it tough?
Well, see, I don't understand what you're saying. So you're saying that without J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson is going to be easier or harder to figure out?
Harder. Well, I don't think that he's going to be. I don't think you can figure him out, period. His athleticism is not going to go anywhere until he gets older. He's only 24 years old, so all he's going to do is evolve as a passer. So I think if we were asking fair or unfair on that, I think it's extremely unfair to believe that anybody in the league has figured him out. They haven't figured out Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. They may have figured out Greg Roman, because you got to remember, this offense is similar in design that I've seen from experts mention as what he did with Kaepernick. The only difference is he had Kaepernick throwing more bombs, but Jackson, to me, has more weapons than they had in San Francisco at the time.
Well, okay, so off that, I would say that it's probably made it a little bit easier to figure out Lamar without J.K. Dobbins. I don't think that they have. I don't think that they will this season. But if that's the goal, and obviously it is if every defensive coordinator they're going to face the season, then yeah, it makes it just a little bit easier, because when I think about the difference between Lamar handing the ball off or at least running a read option with J.K. Dobbins versus Gus Edwards, running it with J.K. Dobbins is harder to figure out, because J.K. Dobbins, as you said, he's a more versatile running back than Gus Edwards is. Gus Edwards is pure power. He's pure north and south. He finds a hole, and then he makes the cut. That's all. So you know exactly what Gus Edwards is going to do. You still don't know exactly what Lamar is going to do, but when you have Lamar not knowing exactly what he's going to do, and then you have Dobbins, or you had Dobbins not knowing what he was going to do, that's what makes it more difficult, and that's where they're going to miss J.K. Dobbins. They may not miss him so much in the regular season, but I think that in the playoffs, when it's just inches of difference, when just that one little piece, that one little dynamic piece that you normally have or that you would have had, you don't have anymore, that can make all the difference between going home and advancing in the playoffs. So I think it'll be felt a little bit more there than in the regular season. But without J.K. Dobbins, it's still going to be a little bit easier to figure out Lamar. But I don't think that they can, because everyone knows, in a sense, let's talk about the running angle. You know how fast he is. You know how he likes to run. You know how he chooses to run.
How elusive he is.
Yeah, but no one, you can't coach that. You can't coach tackling that. You cannot stop that.
You can't scout team it. That's the biggest thing. You cannot scout team a Lamar Jackson. You can put, and I was listening to Pro Football Focus, and they made mention of this, and this makes sense, that teams, their way of scouting Lamar Jackson was to put their fastest wide receiver back there, quarterback, and say, hey, give me your best moves. Do you really think that they're going to have the same moves as a Lamar Jackson, though? That's the thing. Dude's a unicorn, literally. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, their offense is built around power run, and I get why they do that, because Lamar Jackson is so elusive. Lamar Jackson's also a quarterback. I mean, I've never seen a running back throw for 3,000 yards in a season 2 years in a row, nor have I seen a running back help lead his team to only 7 losses in the 3 years he's been the quarterback. I mean, he's 30-7. So your assessment is, I agree with your assessment on this. Regular season, they'll be fine. They're going to win the AFC North. I don't think there's unless they have an injury to Lamar Jackson.
I don't know. I think that with this injury, I can't put them above the Browns, and I'm struggling to put them over Pittsburgh.
I can put them over both. I don't like Pittsburgh, and we'll talk about that in the preview show.
Yeah,
because I don't like Big Ben.
No, I'm fine with that. With Pittsburgh, I'm totally fine with that, but I'm not fine with putting them over Cleveland. I'm not going to do.
They're still the Browns. I need the Browns to prove me wrong. But that doesn't mean the Browns are going to have a good season. My point is, I think that the Ravens top to bottom is better than the Browns, as a unit.
What do you mean? So like just team for team, player for player,
coach
roster
for
for roster, coach for coach. I can't do it. I cannot do that.
I give it to Baltimore. I'm going to give it to Baltimore. I can do it. That's me. And maybe I may be wrong.
We'll get more into that.
We'll get deeper into that in the preview, but
yeah.
But to wrap up, I do believe that it's ridiculous to think that the league has figured out Lamar Jackson. You can say that the league is maybe trying to figure out Greg Roman because what Lamar Jackson is doing is calling the plays that's given to him. And unless we're trying to compare him to Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, some quarterbacks like that change the plays constantly, he's up there with the great, with the good players, the good, maybe not great yet quarterbacks in the league today. Because he is going out there executing on the game plan that's given to him to the tune of 30-7 in the regular season.
So you know what? If I'm Greg Roman and if I'm Lamar Jackson right now, that's exactly what I want to try to develop because the ability to do that, you really can't ever quite figure out because Brady, Manning, Breeze, as they got older, well, maybe with the exception of Manning because he had the neck injury and such, that's the part that you never figure out. You can't figure out exactly how I'm going to think and adjust based on what I see from you pre-snap and to some degree post-snap. So I think that over time, Lamar will develop that even better. And I think that he shouldn't wait until he can no longer do that to get his fadeaway. Yeah. He needs to do it now because eventually that time is going to come to where he's not going to be as fast or as elusive as he is now. And by then, you want to have that curveball. You want to have that second move. And we see this all the time in the NBA where this player who's either bigger, stronger, or faster than everybody else has been able to become a star based upon that without developing other parts of their game. Ben Simmons. So I think that if you want to do that, you do that now because even if you figure out when I like to run, even if you figured out passing concepts, you can't figure out my mind and me being able to diagnose what you're doing in real time. There's no plan for that.
I agree with you with that, but that's going to be on the coaching staff. I put that 100% on Roman, Harbaugh to figure that portion of it out. They need to add somebody because I say this on that. That was the big knock on Peyton Manning in the playoffs. Of course, he's a genius when it comes to running the plays. He would go out there with basically a skeleton set up and figure out how he wanted to look. But in the playoffs, that was a lot easier to figure out. Hence why he only went to 3 Super Bowls with initially. That was always the thing about him is that teams had a better understanding. Ed Reed tricked him in the playoffs to make him go where he wanted him to go. But I'm just saying that's what a lot of teams started to figure out about Peyton Manning was his genius was kind of the same. It's not like he had a NFL playbook in his head. He had concepts that he wanted to do, and he would adjust. But at a certain point, you run out of memory at some point. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody has tendencies.
Exactly. And then they followed his tendencies, and now was exactly. That's probably the best way to say it. So, Lamar, he's going to develop that game. He's only 24 years old. I just want to keep emphasizing that. He's 24. Let the 24-year-old continue to do what 24-year-olds do. Grow, especially when you're actually good at the game.
But my God, I mean, I think we have to temper expectations now, given what he's going to be facing when you're not going to have your top 2 receivers or your running back before game 1. I mean, God forbid something happened to Mark Andrews. Right. Then what are you going to do?
Knock on wood.
Exactly.
Stop that. All right. So what we do here every Monday here on Unfair Sports, we're going to dive face first into the news.
Now Jimmy has the news.
Good old delay.
Good old delay fade. Thank you, Wendy. All right, so Jay, as you know, we had a big fight this weekend. Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley.
Oh, shoot. That did happen, didn't it?
It did happen. So the YouTube sensation turned prize fighter was able to outpoint Tyrone Woodley and win via a split decision in the main event of the boxing card. This was last night, Sunday night at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Woodley is a former UFC welterweight champ, as you know, with several highlight reel knockouts. He landed a big right hand in the 4th round, but Paul was able to survive that round and beat Woodley over the rest of the bout.
So when is Jake Paul going to fight a boxer?
I give him 2 or 3 more fights. What he's trying to do is create a window that he can get a Conor McGregor fight and really get the bag that he wants. And then maybe after that, he'll actually challenge like just real full-time professional WBC sanctioned boxers.
Cool. Do me a favor. Call me when he actually fights a boxer, and then I'll pay attention to him.
Okay, I'll call you in 5 years. All right. So up next, the Colts. It just seems like Carson Wentz. There's just something always in the way. Carson Wentz, along with his Pro Bowl center Ryan Kelly and receiver Zach Pascal, have been placed on the reserve COVID-19 list. The team announced Monday they were placed on this list after coming in close contact with a Colts staff member who tested positive, according to ESPN's Dan Graziano. The players can return in 5 days if they continue to have negative tests and remain symptomatic. The fact that the 3 players were placed on this list as close contacts is an indication that they are not vaccinated for the coronavirus.
Yeah, it's personal choice. You do what you want, and I understand that, but just got to remember that there's certain rules that need to be followed and protocols for a reason. Like these are put in place because of testing and trial and error. We've got a year and some change with this virus, and we're starting to figure out all the and things that we can try that seem to help and mitigate things. So unfortunately, it just be what it be.
This just tells me that the Colts, they're going to have a down season. They are. First, you lose your quarterback and your left tackle, Quentin Nelson, maybe one of the best in the game, to the same foot injury. Luckily, they're able to come back way ahead of schedule, or what people thought they were going to come back from. And then you have this. So you miss these days of practice. And, when you're new to this team and you're trying to make a comeback, essentially, in Carson Wentz's case, every rep is as important as the one before it and the one after it. So this just tells me that the Colts are going to struggle this season. I hope they don't, but they probably will.
Luckily for him, he's his old offensive coordinator. So
yeah. All right. So lastly, so as we're in the era of buyouts in the NBA, there's one player who wants no part of that, and that is 5-time All-Star and Olympian Kevin Love, who has no interest in negotiating a buyout over the remaining 2 years and $60 million left on his contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers. His agent says there's been no talks with them on a buyout, nor is there any interest from Kevin in doing a buyout.
I love it. I love Kevin Love saying, no, you're going to pay me. Pay me. I'm not even going to take a discount so I can leave and somebody else can supplement. No, if you're going to do anything with me, you're going to release me and pay me all my money, and then I'm going to get extra money, or you're going to trade me somewhere, and we'll go with that. But yeah, nah.
See, I get the feeling that this is kind of an FU to Cleveland. I mean, it is.
I mean, it's kind of right, though.
The reason why is because, for one, you draft Evan Mobley, who plays my position, power forward actually, and center, and you re-sign Jared Allen as well. Gave him a pretty nice bag as well. So that kind of leaves me as the third guy. So I think he's kind of sticking it to them somewhat, because he could easily take his buyout. So a $60 million buyout, I mean, what, 15, 20 million plus your freedom to sign with whoever you want to. Wouldn't the freedom be worth?
No.
Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Give me my money.
Give my money.
Yep. Is that it?
Yep. That's it. It's news.
And that was Jimmy with the news.
Thank you, Bob.
No, I want all my money. Every dime.
And I think, too, Jay, part of what that might say about Kevin Love is he's not terribly interested in being on a championship-level roster, because if he were bought out and he was a free agent right now, the Nets would call him, that the Lakers would call him, that Portland, trying to keep Dame Dollar, they would call him, the Mavericks would probably call him. I mean, he would be very sought after.
I'm trying to figure out why Dallas hasn't tried to trade for him. He's a perfect complementary piece for a player like Luka Doncic, who was ball dominant. LeBron was ball dominant, and Kevin flourished underneath him.
I mean, if they had the cap space, I think that they might take a run at him. I mean, you need, just for the message of the aggressiveness alone to Luka Doncic, you try to do that anyway, because I think he still has some basketball left in him.
Agree. I kind of wished Oklahoma City would have went after him. Just absorb his money.
He doesn't fit the timeline.
He doesn't have to fit the timeline. You still got to have a salary floor you got to hit, and so either you hit the salary floor or you pay all the players that money you don't spend at salary floor. They prefer to hit the salary floor.
But how would he even fit on Oklahoma City? He wouldn't be able to start, would he?
I mean, who cares? You just take him, and then you get a draft pick with him, and then you prepare to trade him next season.
That's so un-Oklahoma City.
Or use him to help develop other young players. Put him in a coaching role. Because he ain't winning ain't no championship team going to trade for him, at my point. But anyway, let's move on to the next topic.
Yeah. Sorry. So moving on, let's stay in the NFL. So a big rumor over the weekend. Part of what we've been trying to figure out as we approach week 1 of the NFL season is what the Houston Texans were going to do with Deshaun Watson. We kind of find ourselves asking the exact same questions of Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia 76ers.
Every week.
Well, per Charles Robinson of Yahoo Sports, Miami has emerged as one of the front runners in trade discussions with the Houston Texans for the services of Deshaun Watson. The Texans still want a king's ransom for Watson, as far as multiple first-round picks, multiple second-round picks, etc. In addition to the fact that, yes, he still has the civil and potentially legal trouble hanging over him.
Right.
Other teams that were interested, because they weren't the only ones, were the Carolina Panthers, the Denver Broncos, and the Philadelphia Eagles, the majority of which I feel like have backed off. So, fair or unfair, Deshaun Watson will be a Miami Dolphin by week 1?
I'm going to say unfair. I think the protections that the Dolphins and others were asking for in order to get the trade to go down is a little steep for what I believe the Houston Texans are going to allow. Because Charles Robinson reported in his thread, he said that from some of the teams that backed out of the sweepstakes, they basically said that they wanted conditions on the trade to where if Watson is not allowed to play for a year, 2, 3, or whatever, that they get some sort of compensation back from that deal. And it looks like the Texans are balking on that. So I don't see a reason for any team to trade for him if that's going to be the case. That's one thing. 2, I think they're going to ride it with Tua. They're going to give him this final chance. Basically, Tua needs to go out there and not really have an Aaron Rodgers season, but have an Aaron Rodgers season. He don't have to win MVP, but he's got to look like he's competent enough to be able to run a offense in the NFL without fear, to where they have to make the decision of, okay, we need to stick with this guy. I believe that they're going to go ahead and give him that chance. I don't see, I don't see them getting this trade done before the season starts. That's kind of what I'm trying to get to. I don't see them having time to make this happen.
I thought it was strange as well because I watched at least 2 of Miami's preseason games, and Tua, he did look more comfortable. He looked more in control of the playbook. He started to look a little bit more like he did at Alabama, where whenever he drops back, he looks poised. He looks like he knows exactly what he wants to do with the football.
And that's important.
Right. So to bring in a Deshaun Watson would crush any of the progress that you've made with him in the offseason and in the preseason. So essentially, you might as well trade him if you do bring him in. But
that would be the case. Yeah, I think he would be in that deal.
But I don't think that Miami is as aggressive as people think. For one, I think the Houston Texans leaked this, and I think they did that in order to make any other team who is on the fence or who is interested or who may be balking and not being able to get protections with the whatever they give up or whatever they give to them, if something does happen that puts him out of football for a year or 2 or whatever it is. So I think they're doing this to show that he's still available. They release just, what exactly that they're looking for. And they're really targeting teams who are right there, who are ready to win now. And that's the thing about Miami. Miami somewhat is ready to win right now. It wouldn't be easy because you're still in a division with the Dolphins and the Patriots, but on defense and on offense, they have players. They've got the right coaching staff. They've got the right momentum.
Bills and Patriots, yes. So that's part of what they're doing in releasing this. The Dolphins didn't release this, and categorically, Brian Flores did not deny it. So you know that they were in this at some point. But if I'm thinking about, okay, who would they be putting this out for? The Houston Texans, outside of these teams who've been in the running. I think part of who they might have put this out for potentially is the New York Giants. Have you watched any of their preseason games in that offensive line with how they've played? I don't like preseason, so I have glossed over some of the games.
It's bad, but it's the kind of bad that a quarterback who Daniel Jones is straight line fast for a quarterback. He's like 88 speed on Madden. That's how I judge everybody's speed, basically, by what the Madden adjusters do. Yeah, but Deshaun Watson, we talked about that elusiveness. He's about as fast as Daniel Jones, but he's more elusive. Somebody like Deshaun Watson could find a way to make things work with all the pieces around him he has on offense, even though your offensive line doesn't play very well. I don't know if they will. So I think that that's part of the reason why they put this out. But like you, I would say it's probably unfair to say he's a Dolphin by week 1. I think that they're ready to make everyone uncomfortable by having him on the sidelines, or hell, maybe even starting him, because obviously he's the best quarterback on the roster, knowing full well that your season is going to be bad anyway.
Yeah, it's true. And it looks like the Texans are prepared to pay him his $10.54 million to not even play this season. And the Dolphins are trying to push themselves away from the conversation around Deshaun Watson. Brian Flores said it basically in the press conference that they want guys with high character. I don't know what he meant by that, if that was kind of a shot, but
I know what he means.
It didn't come across as someone that's really that enthusiastic about getting him. But at the same time, like you said, he didn't deny it. He didn't deny that the conversations are happening. So I can totally see him potentially ending up there. But I think the biggest piece when it comes to Deshaun Watson is the Texans are definitely going to keep him. They're going to try to milk out as much from anybody as they possibly can, and that's basically what we need to think about when it comes to him going somewhere.
So can you imagine being Deshaun Watson in this situation? Like, just, forget the legal stuff, the civil stuff, forget all that. Going under center for this team, when you know that this is a team you don't want to play for and a team you don't believe in, what must he be thinking right now, knowing that he's only a few days away from having to be the week 1 starter, or at least be on the sidelines while this team plays, and he has to put on that uniform that he does not want to put on? What do you think he's thinking right now?
Who, Watson?
Yes.
Who, man? He's probably just like, man, I need to get out of Texas like right now. I need to go. He wants to be out. He wants to play somewhere else anyway. He didn't like what the organization has been doing things. And and with all his legal trouble or whatnot, he needs to be focused on that instead of trying to focus on the game anyway. He needs to be at home training, staying in shape, preparation for a potential trade if things do clear up.
Yeah.
But he's probably just like, he like us is just tired of him being in the news cycle.
I mean, and he's got a no trade clause as well. And I saw one story where the Philadelphia Eagles, he said he wouldn't waive his no trade clause for them. But the longer this goes on, you have to think he might get a little more laxed with that no trade clause, knowing that at least it would get him out of there, even if it's to a situation that he doesn't like. But when you think about it, any of those teams who are interested, I mean, especially the Broncos, Panthers, Eagles, all those situations are better than what you have in Texas. I mean, you wouldn't win a championship this season with those teams, but you wouldn't be staring at 2-15, 3-14 with the Texans.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Friendly reminder, make sure you check us out on YouTube. We do these on video. And if you're on YouTube, check out the podcast version. If you can't watch the videos, just search Unfair Sports, or you can go to our website, unfair-sports.com. Has all the links to all the syndications. While you're there, like, subscribe, rate, review, comment, and follow on Spotify, and just go ahead and give us those 5 stars because you know that we deserve it. Because if we don't, just give us those 5 anyway. So it's college football weekend. We opened up the show talking about college football weekend. Week 0 just passed. We got to watch Scott Frost take another L at Nebraska as Illinois gave them.
Was that 30-22?
30-22. And Nebraska tried to look like they were going to come back at the end, but I was trying to figure out what the hell happened to Scott Frost when he got over there?
Forget that. How the hell is Martinez still the quarterback? He's got to be like 35 years old.
Right. I'm actually curious. I didn't even look up to see if he is one of the many super seniors, which is what I'm actually intrigued about this year. So you know about the super seniors, right?
Somewhat.
Let me explain that to you all. So what the super seniors are is that because of COVID-19, the NCAA gave every player in college at that time in 2020 an additional year eligibility. So this year we're going to have a lot of teams with 5th-year seniors playing their 5th year of college football, which is, of course, unheard of. We're not used to players playing this many games, so it's going to be intriguing to see what that type of experience gives us. And at the same time, this year, the super senior did not count against the roster, the scholarships. Okay. Whereas next year, if anybody decides to make a return, it will take away from their 86-man rosters. So because of that, this is the last year that teams can really take advantage of having extra players on the roster and seeing what they can do. So I'm intrigued to see what teams do about this. So there's a few players out there to really think about. Like I saw Charlie Brewer, the quarterback from Baylor. You remember him when he was out there putting in work on OU and before, coach of the Panthers. What's his name?
Matt Rule.
There you go. Rule. Right before Rule, I always forget his last name. Rule left and went to Carolina. He had Charlie Brewer out there eating, and Charlie's now with Utah. He's their starting quarterback. So it's going to be intriguing seeing all of the super seniors and see what happens from that and see if any of them actually make an impact. But let's talk about what the heck is going to happen here with college football season. We're going to do some quick predictions, a little preview show segment on this. Not much to really talk about because college football is so top heavy. It's just, it be what it be. I mean, there's really not much to say. So Jimmy, who do you have in your college football playoff? I don't even want to do conference winners this year. Who you got playoffs?
Take forever. Yeah. The criteria I used to determine who was going to be in the playoff really came down to 2 things. First thing is scheduling. In any sport, your scheduling obviously is going to impact the I guess the prognostication of your season, who you play, where you play them, when you play them, things like that. So I looked at schedule first, and I've said this for years, this college football playoff, this is a television show.
Yes.
Made up of 3 different games.
Yes.
So you have to get the right teams and the right matchups for your television show.
Yep.
Right. So I looked at that angle as well to see by the end of it if I could think how the committee's thinking in terms of what they think will be the best matchups and who's likely to also get there because of how their schedule plays out. So I looked at top 4, starting with the 1 seed. I think OU is going to earn the 1 seed, primarily because they don't play a currently ranked team until November 20th against Iowa State, who always seems to cause them problems. So that's going to be a game. I can't quite recall where the game is going to be, but I think that they're going to get the 1 seed. They're going to be hovering around.
They're in Norman.
Okay, in Norman, so that helps them out. So they're going to be hovering around Alabama, who's my number 2 seed. I think that Alabama takes only 1 loss this season. I think that loss could be it's probably going to be to number 6, Texas A&M, on October the 9th. But it's early in the season. This is Alabama. You know, they always get grandfathered into the playoffs somehow. So they're going to be at 2. At 3, I'm going to take Georgia. Now, Georgia, this season, starting with their first game, they got to play Clemson. Then you got to play Auburn, and you got to play Florida in the season. As being an SEC team, I get all that. They're going to lose one of those games. Hopefully it's the earliest game, which will be Clemson, or the one after that. But they're also going to get grandfathered in because I don't know if you've noticed, Georgia always seems to be in the playoff too. And that's for a reason, because they help to provide a very good television show, as we've seen in person in that game that we don't want to remember at the Rose Bowl against OU in person. All right. So they're the 3 seed and the 4 seed. Surprise team, North Carolina.
What?
Exactly, because they've got the other best quarterback in college football. And when you look at their schedule, they've got a rough patch kind of in the middle of the season where they have Florida State, they have Miami, and they have Notre Dame. I think they could win all of those games. The Florida State game is probably going to be the least tough, but I think Miami's going to be tough. I think Miami opens the season against Alabama, right? Currently 14. And obviously Notre Dame is going to be a tough game as well. They're currently at the 9 spot. But I think that off of the strength and the brilliance that people tell me Sam Howell possesses, he's going to be able to get them through that, and they're going to be able to sneak in into that 4 seed. So what that sets up is maybe by that time, the Heisman Trophy winner, one of these two, you have Sam Howell versus Spencer Rattler, 1 versus 4. So you have that matchup between the 2 dueling quarterbacks. And then in the middle, you have Alabama and Georgia. And what they become, because they do tend to meet in these college football playoffs, is you kind of have college football's version of Brady versus Manning, just this perennial powerhouse matchup that you really don't ever get tired of, no matter how many times you see it. So I think that this could be them. Yeah. So they're going to be the 2 and 3 seed. So those are my top 4 right there.
So you have Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, and North Carolina?
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Well, I was going to ask for a dark horse in there, but it doesn't like you already got one because North Carolina is a dark horse. I would have never guessed them. So keep mine simple. I have at the 1 seed Oklahoma as well. As you mentioned, I look at those same 2 categories: television scheduling and television content. That's what we're looking for. And of course, at the same time, we got to make sure these teams actually win and get there. And we know that they're going to get there. So Oklahoma's my favorite. Not really being a homer on that. As you can see, I'm wearing my Tennessee gear today. I do believe that I think Oklahoma has probably the best team in the country right now with an experienced quarterback to go along with the talent they have, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Their defense has gotten a lot better over the years. They've done nothing but get better and better every year under Grinch, and I think that that's going to make a difference. Number 2, I do have Alabama as well. The thing about Alabama is that I believe they're going to lose one of these games early with either Miami or Florida giving them problems. And potentially, because they've got 4 games to me that's losable. Miami, Florida, not Miami, Florida, but Miami and the University of Florida, right. Texas A&M, as well as Auburn, just because of rivalries and in conference. I don't. There's no guarantee they'll probably end up going undefeated. They got a new quarterback. They also have a new offensive coordinator. So with Bill O'Brien coming into the Nick Saban school of reforming coaches, I don't know what he's going to look like his first year at the helm. Maybe next year, and Bryce is going to be ridiculous next year anyway, but this year I'm not sold on them just yet. But at the same time, they're Alabama.
Okay.
Third, I got Clemson going in there. I don't think that Clemson is going to get stopped. They don't play North Carolina until potentially the conference championship. And I don't know if North Carolina is going to actually make it into the conference championship.
Yep.
And I also see them beating Georgia, knocking them smooth out. And then my last team is going to be, so far, Ohio State. I think that Ohio State is built for this. They don't really have any competition in conference, really. I mean, they got Minnesota to start the year. They have Oregon, which I think is going to be a lot closer than we expect. And then, of course, Michigan at the end of the year, and they got Penn State. But they should have a borderline cakewalk going in there if they get past Oregon. Now, my dark horse, Oregon. Because I looked at scheduling. Oregon, their jerseys is a great TV production. People love their crazy jerseys they have, and people will be willing to watch them. The next thing behind them is that the Pac-12 is completely wide open. Completely wide open. And if Oregon can pull off an upset of Ohio State with the nation's top defensive player in Kayvon Thibodeau, they're probably going to national. They're going to go undefeated. If they're going undefeated, there's no way they don't make it to the national championship. Well, they don't make it to the playoffs, because if they're undefeated, ain't nobody else going to probably be undefeated besides maybe Oklahoma. So they're going to go. So unless we have 5 undefeated teams, Oregon will go, and I think that knocks Ohio State out of there if they beat them the second game of the season.
I had a couple of other dark horse teams as well. I thought about Cincinnati, who's sitting there at 8, that if they can run the table again, and they're out to get their respect, that maybe this might be a chance to sneak into the 4th spot, something like that. And then I also thought about Iowa State as well. Obviously, in order to solidify that, they would have to beat OU, which they've done before. I don't think they're going to do it this year, but they would have to beat them. But you also have Iowa, their second game, at number 18, and you have Texas at 21. Texas is kind of a bit of a wild card, but if they can win those games, those can be quality wins, so long as those two teams are still ranked when they play them, and then you take your chances against OU. So a one-loss Iowa State obviously is not going to get into the national championship conversation as far as the college football playoff, but if they can run the table, they will.
So I think the problem for Iowa, and this is a problem with the Big 12. This is where the Big 12 really screwed up. Yeah. This is how they screwed the pooch, and this is the reason why not only this, also why OU and Texas want to get the hell up out of there. This round robin and then playing in a conference championship game is the stupidest idea in the world. You want to know how stupid this is, Jimmy? I'm going to tell you how stupid this is. If they didn't have that, guess what they could possibly have? What? 2 teams in the playoffs. With Iowa State and Oklahoma, both with 1 loss, run the table. They had a chance of having 2 teams in there. But guess what? It's impossible. It's impossible. Impossible for that to happen this year. Now, there's a chance it could be 1 loss, but it's not going to be, because you need one of them to be undefeated and the other one to have 1 loss. You can't have both of them to have 1 losses and get them both into the playoff. If the Big 12 had it to where they only would have met each other in the conference championship, if Iowa State met Oklahoma and Oklahoma beat them and Iowa State kept it close, there would have been a chance that Iowa State could have got into that 4th spot.
Right.
There would have been a chance.
Right.
But they screwed that. They screwed the pooch. Yeah. Screwed the pooch. So, Heisman, let's talk about that.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. We got to talk about the winner of all that. No. Did you have a dark horse? Do you have any more?
I gave you my 2 dark horses. Okay. I've got title game and I've got championship game. But as far as Heisman's, give me yours first.
So, Heisman-wise, there's no excuse for Spencer Rattler not to win this trophy. He's in the Lincoln Riley system of quarterback excellence, and the way that they're going to play this game, there's really no reason why he shouldn't win this. But there's a chance. I do think there's a dark horse that's going to be in the conversation. 0 chance he wins it. But he'll be in the conversation is going to be Kayvon Thibodeau for Oregon, defensive end. He's been projected as a top 3 pick in the draft right now, potentially number 1 overall, depending on if Rattler comes out and if people are really still high on Sam Howell. I think Sam will be in there. I think DJU will be there from Clemson. I think he's going to be in the conversation if Clemson produces. But to be honest, I think it's going to be a runaway Oklahoma thing this year.
And I think you also maybe take a look at Derek Stingley Jr., the cornerback out of LSU, to see if, because you're talking about a defensive player in Thibodeau, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at a player like him and all the attention that an SEC team is going to get, if he can look like, because even in his first season when they won the national championship, he was just a fantastic player. Last year, Did he opt out? Because I don't really remember hearing much about him last year.
That's a good question. I can't remember. He may have been one of the many opt-outs, but we're going to have a ton of those this year.
But I think there's a chance he could at least make it to New York. I think Spencer Rattler will be there. I think that the quarterback, I cannot pronounce his last name at Clemson. First name DJ. We'll say DJ. DJU could be there.
They call him.
And maybe the quarterback out of UNC, Sam Howell, who they're already talking about. Because again, this particular award is created by and decided by the media. So it's whoever captures the narrative. So that's what we look at in terms of, usually you and I, when we figure out what the narrative is, we know who's going to win that. We usually can predict all the end of the season awards as far as like MVPs and stuff like that.
Because it's all narrative based, exactly. And it's also regional, especially with Heisman. So the regional people are going to vote for their person. Yeah. If they have a person with a good enough narrative to get across from everybody, they're going to end up getting invited.
But I agree with you. That was a good take on Spencer Rattler. I think that, right now he's in the front runner. He's the best position in order to win this. All he has to do is not turn the ball over. That's all he has to do. And if he does that, he will produce with just those fantastic offensive players around him, benefiting from Lincoln Riley's mind. Just in the lineage of Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, he can win the Heisman as well. He might actually have the best arm of those three. I know Kyler Murray's got a really good arm, but you don't think Spencer Rattler's got a better arm than them?
Ooh, that's a good question. Kyler's got that baseball arm, but you might be right.
That's a good question.
That's a good one to evaluate on. But it's DJ Uiagalelei.
Uiagalelei. Got it.
Yep. Uiagalelei.
That's cool.
I did some digging and try to figure out how to say that name right. I still butcher it every time to start. So I'll say it a lot enough this year.
Yeah, we will.
We will get to it. So national championship game. Who you got?
National championship game. I've got OU taking on Alabama.
Ooh, OU Bama. Mm-hmm. I have OU right now playing against Ohio State.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Big 12 or Big 10 if Ohio State doesn't lose that game to Oregon.
Who is the quarterback of Ohio State? I know they have those two really good receivers.
Stroud just got named the starting quarterback at Ohio State, which is pretty.
Have you seen any film on him?
I've seen a little bit. I also follow R.J. Young with Fox, and he talks highly of him. I've seen some of the stuff he's said about him. He's a monster.
Actually, we'll get our first look this Thursday against Minnesota on Fox, right?
Sure will.
Yeah. Ohio State, Minnesota.
Big Ten. So yeah, he got. He's a redshirt freshman too, so he's been there, just like Bryce Young. I'm not sure between the two is going to be better, but we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. So I've got OU going up against, is that possible? Did I have Ohio State fourth or have them third? I had them fourth, so it's not possible.
You have them fourth. Yeah,
I have them fourth, so it's not possible. OU will play them in the first round, so never mind. Mm-hmm. It's the national championship. Let's go ahead and just switch that up. We'll delete this later. I'm kidding. I'm going to keep that up.
Mission.
I'm going to abort mission. No, if that's the case, if I have them fourth, then it's probably going to end up being Alabama too. Mm-hmm. It's going to keep it simple. It'll be 1 versus 2, and then it'll be, I think Oklahoma wins the national championship this year.
This is the year to do it.
There's no excuse. I remember telling me and my buddy talked about this a while ago. We talked about this in 2019 when OU got Spencer Rattler on campus. That was what we talked about, and he was like, we both looked at that OU defense because all of it was young, especially when they got thrashed by LSU. It was a bunch of younger guys that was getting a lot of game time. Mm-hmm. And what that led to was now we have juniors, seniors, super seniors prepare for this season. That makes me believe that OU has a really good chance.
And looking at OU's schedule,
it's favorable.
That Iowa State game, you just got to take care of business in that game.
That's it. They have a very favorable schedule.
That's your season right there.
That's it. They have a favorable schedule. Texas ain't back. No. Sarkisian, he's got a year to get some people in. I'm looking at Pro Football Outsiders probabilities. They have 3 games in the 70s, which is Texas, a 71% chance to win, 70% chance to win Iowa State, and a 72% chance to beat Oklahoma State, who's expected to have actually a decent season.
Yeah, they will.
So we'll see what Gundy does across the road. But, I'm going to say, just like you, Oklahoma.
Yep. So you'll notice, Jay, as we wrap things up, how one of the intriguing things about this preseason, since we were going to have it whether we wanted it or not, is this rookie quarterback versus established but underachieving quarterback. And you've had these types of quarterback battles going on in the NFL, which actually doesn't happen too often.
We have a lot of quarterback battles this year.
Yeah, a lot of
more
quarterback
than
battles.
years past.
Right, a lot of quarterback battles, a lot of new quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, etc. So just like you have Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco, who still has not named their starter. You had Justin Fields and Andy Dalton, who stuck to their guns and kept Andy Dalton as the Week 1 starter, which I think is good. But by Week 2, send in Justin Fields. And lastly, and we've talked about this several times, that's how intriguing this particular matchup is. To me, it's the most intriguing, and to me, it's the closest, is in New England, where you have Cam Newton versus Mac Jones. Cam versus Mac. Same spell backwards. So, get it?
I hate you.
Yeah, palindrome. Anyway, so I read
My
this.
mind is blown.
So
right
I read this
now.
really interesting article. This was actually before their preseason game that I read this. This is Friday on The Athletic by Jeff Howe, where he talked about his belief that Mac Jones should be the starter over Cam, even though he's a rookie. And what he looked at is he looked at their stats from their 11-on-11 and 7-on-7 drills, as well as their joint practices. And each one of those, Mac Jones basically had better stats. Not by much. Cam has had a really good camp, but Mac Jones has just been a tick better than Cam Newton. So you combine that with their final preseason game this past Sunday against the Giants, where you had Cam come in. He went 2 for 5, 10 yards, and an interception to Blake Martinez. I watched the game, so I know. And then you had Mac Jones, who played the majority of the game, honestly. He went 10 of 14 for 156 and a touchdown. So finally, and we know that Belichick, he said after this game he was undecided still about who the starting quarterback was going to be. But nonetheless, is it fair or unfair to say that Mac Jones is going to, in fact, supplant Cam Newton as the starter of the New England Patriots?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely unfair. I don't see Belichick throwing a rookie out there this year. Like you said, they both had really good camps. So what I've heard, I was listening to Pro Football Focus, and they talked about how really good of a camp Cam Newton had in the eyes of leadership and the way that they won and performed. Now, I know the little situation happened with him going off campus for a procedure. And I believe it was for a second opinion that he was approved to go on, but it was outside of the protocols, which tells us, of course, that Cam is also not vaccinated. So he had to sit out for a bit, but when I sat there bubble. But Cam hasn't done anything to lose the job yet. So to me, you bring him back if you feel like he hasn't done anything to lose the job, and they brought him back. And so because they brought him back, I don't see a reason for them to go ahead and bench him now. Mac Jones is built for this system. He's built for the Patriot way. He's built specifically for it because of the type of quarterback he is. He gets rid of the ball quick, makes really quick decisions, blah, blah, blah. Cam brings another dynamic. Now, I could totally see them maybe going to like a 2-quarterback system at some point, bringing Cam on the short yardage and let him, trick everybody out and deciding which direction he's going to go, if he's going to pass, if he's going to run, etc. But after hearing all these reports from camp and everything, I definitely know this. Mac Jones is their quarterback for the future. Like I said, he's perfect for what Josh McDaniels is going to want to do. But I don't see what did Cam do to lose the job.
Mac Jones is a better quarterback than he is.
I don't know if I agree with that yet.
He is. He's a better quarterback than him.
I think Mac is good great for this system. I don't think he's better yet.
He, like I said, he outperformed him in nearly every practice. You draft him because you know you want him to be your starter. And this last preseason game, it might be something to gloss over, but I don't think it was. When he threw that interception, I don't think he came back after that. So what I think they did by giving Mac Jones so much more time over Cam Newton is they wanted Mac Jones to give them a reason not to choose him as a starter. And when you go 10 of 14, which is a high completion percentage for that many yards and a touchdown versus Cam's pick, I think that had a huge impact on them choosing Mac Jones. Now, I think I'm going to say that they are going to choose Mac Jones. And you already made part of my argument for me, which is that he fits this system. Because think about this. New England obviously was out there most successful when they had Tom Brady. So which of these quarterbacks, in terms of demeanor, in terms of style of play, fits their system the best? Who is it that they're used to? People gravitate towards what they're used to.
Yeah, we go back to what you're comfortable to, and you're right.
Because think about it. Because Mac Jones, very little athleticism, just like Tom Brady. I mean, just bad combine photos, just like Tom Brady. Deadly accurate, just like Tom Brady. Not perfect, but accurate, more accurate than Cam Newton.
Right.
And he's obsessed with the game. In this article that I talked about with Jeff Howe, I talked about how he gets there at 4:30 a.m., just like Tom Brady used to do. And he loved it the most. on the weekends when at times when people are not there and he's got the place all to himself. That's the kind of obsession that you can't coach. And this is part of what they said about him in Alabama. So you know who's been talking him up this whole time to Bill Belichick is Nick Saban, right? So I think that when you look at the little things, this little COVID mishap thing with Cam, and he loses 4 days of practice, and Mac Jones looks good in those practices. The only thing that Cam has over Mac Jones is that he's a veteran, is that he's older, and that means something to me. So I don't think it's not a bad move if they start Cam Newton. I totally understand that, but they know Mac Jones is the better quarterback. So here's the thing. Cam Newton gets into the spot week 1. They choose him as a starter. Here's their schedule, the first 6 games of the year. You open up against Miami at home. Then you have the Jets. Then you have the Saints. Then you have the Bucks. Then you go to the Texans, and then you have Dallas at home. By the end of that 6-game stretch, New England could be 2-4. So by then, going into week 7? Is my math correct? Yeah, week 7. Mac Jones is going to be your starter by then. If Cam goes 2-4 against those teams, and he very well could, honestly, because right now I will pick Dallas over them. I will pick Tampa over them. I will pick Miami over them. New Orleans, I will pick them over them. No one's picking the Jets or the Texans over them, obviously. But I think that sooner rather than later, because originally I said Mac Jones is a starting quarterback beginning 2022, but I think it's going to happen much sooner than that because I think that they can see the same thing that I see, that he's a better quarterback than Cam Newton. Doesn't mean Cam is bad. Cam is still good, but Mac Jones is just a tick better than him.
Cam is aged, and we're starting to see him show his age. But I think him having this extra year in the system and Josh McDaniels, as much as we default back to what makes us comfortable and what we're used to. Yeah. We also like that new shiny toy. We also like the excitement of that and the thrill of the new flame. We thoroughly enjoy that. A lot of people enjoy that a lot more than they should. Right. But we actually get into that kind of stuff. And that's what I see with Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick with this offense. Cam gives them way more versatility in what they can do with the offense, especially because they still have one problem that, to me, affects Mac Jones more than Cam Newton. Who are their receivers?
I can name them, but
you can name them, but that's my point. Who's their receiver?
Forget the receivers. This is a tight end oriented offense. They still have 2 Pro Bowl tight ends.
So now they do, and that's something that they're going to be able to really evolve into. But at the same time, I think that Cam will flourish with that because Cam was great with Greg Olsen.
Yep,
but it's all he had.
I agree.
I mean, if you think about the rest of his receivers in the set that he's ever had in Carolina, who was his wide receivers? Who did he have that you could say, yeah, you know what? He was a legitimate number one.
He had Steve Smith for a spell, didn't he?
I think Steve Smith
was that he was already gone by then?
I think he was gone.
He might have been gone by then.
I think he was about to leave.
Was it Kelvin Benjamin? That was his first.
That was his first number one. That
flamed out quickly.
So because of that, I don't believe that I think that's what the Patriots are looking at, is that Cam did great, like I said, with Greg Olsen. He did great with the tight end. Mm-hmm. Gave him 2 that he can now target. And then you have these young receivers that they're just trying to figure out what they're going to do with. Mm-hmm. Cam is more likely to be successful with them and this offensive line than Mac is when it comes to the ones. Not the twos, because you remember, Mac spent most of his time with the 2s and the 3s in these games.
That's true.
I'm talking about getting against the ones, especially when they go against teams like Tampa Bay with that front 4. The Saints, whose defense is front 7. Shoot, the Saints, whose defense has been up there. The Dolphins, who has a legitimate defense under Flores. You know, you go down that list of all these teams. The Cowboys' defense is actually getting better.
And that's part of what I'm saying. Part of what I'm saying is that in these games, they're going to turn Cam Newton over probably twice in each one of those games, and then eventually the crowd, the calls are going to get louder and louder for them to bring in the kid, and eventually they are going to.
Yeah, I was wrong. So Steve Smith was with him at the beginning of Cam's career. Uh-huh. He played. Yeah, he actually played. He's putting up 1,000-yard seasons.
So he had 2. Did he get prime Steve Smith?
He got the end of the road
before he went to Baltimore.
Smith.
I think it was.
Yeah, because he spent last 3 years. He did last 3 years of his career.
Yeah, I mean, it was still
14, 15, and 16.
He was still a good receiver. I mean, regardless, you're right.
Yeah, he had like a year or 2 of him. So that's the difference maker. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't have, once you get to the prime of your career, you don't have a number one. Mm-hmm. You don't have a number one wide receiver, and that makes a difference for your quarterback.
True. Okay, so you see them announcing Cam Newton as a starter.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay.
I see them picking Cam and just going with that, calling it a day. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, because 2011 is when Cam got there. He had Steve Smith for 3 years.
Right.
Then he left. Ended up being out. So the young Cam, remember Cam threw for like 4,000 yards the first 2 seasons. Cam was.
It was just his rookie season.
Oh yeah, second year he drew just under that amount, and we looked at him like, oh man, this dude is a lot better than we thought he was going to be coming into here. He just wasn't accurate. I mean, he wasn't. He threw for 4,000 the first year, 38 the second year, and then as soon as Steve Smith was out, and you can tell the difference when you don't have that number one option.
And that's what I'm saying. A quarterback like Mac Jones, he doesn't really need a number one option. Because he will find the right guy to hit in that offense, play to play. He doesn't, I mean, that's part of what the benefit is of this offense is you don't have that kind of receiver, because having a great receiver who's got the personality to match, in a sense, can be a bit of a curse. So with this offense, Max is going to hit the open guy. And I know Cam can do the exact same thing, but like you just pointed out, he functions best when he knows who his legitimate number one receiver is, who he can truly trust and depend on. And in this offense right now, you got to say it's probably Jonnu Smith, but he's a tight end. And I think he got a little nicked up about a week or so ago, as did Hunter Henry before that.
Yeah, everybody's getting hurt in the NFL right now.
But I think it's Mac. I think they choose Mac, and if they don't, they're going to choose him by week 7.
Okay, so you think by week 7 is what you're going to go for?
That's what I'm hedging on.
You're hedging on that
week
now.
7.
Okay, you want to put some money on it?
How much?
Seafood dinner.
Okay, that Mac Jones is the starter by week 7. Okay, it's a deal.
Got it on the show.
Deal. Got it.
Boom.
All right.
It's on camera, guys.
Got it.
America, make sure you hold this man to this, and you can hold me to it, because I'm gonna go ahead and I will pay up. I understand, because I don't really care either direction. I'm just excited to see. I want to see what Cam can do after an offseason with the Patriots.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I know that Mac's the future, and I know that next season Mac Jones will be the starting quarterback. And I think it's better to give him a full year and not getting destroyed, and make sure your offensive line is good. Right. That I don't want to see Mac behind a bad line, because I don't want to see. I don't like quarterbacks.
No, the Patriots have a good line. That's not going to be a problem at all. They've got a good
line. Because that's what Bill Belichick does. He knows the GM.
Every lineman on Madden is 80 or better.
Oh, okay. So in other words, they have a good line.
Yeah, they have a good line. They're fine.
Okay. So with that, Jimmy, talk to us about the editing room floor.
Our editing room floor. What didn't make it into the show? Well, we have a Parmesan Rondo sighting.
Parmesan Rondo.
In a familiar site. He rejoins the Los Angeles Lakers on a 1-year, $2.6 million deal after having been bought out by the Memphis Grizzlies. Rejoining the Lakers, as I said, he's 35 years old. And the last time he wore a Lakers uniform was in the bubble, celebrating a championship with LeBron and AD.
That's interesting. You know what's funny is the of course Twitter went crazy. All the Twitter comedians were putting out memes of people fighting each other, saying that this is Rondo and Westbrook when they get back together, because they almost fought in the bubble because of whatever was going down. So I bet you LeBron brings them together. They squash the beef and say, "Hey fellas, let's do the real thing." And Rondo's a professional, even though he is annoying as hell supposedly to people.
See,
so
you need Rondo in a roster like this, because what he's going to do as not only the assistant coach, which is essentially what he was with LeBron, is now he can be the assistant GM. What he's going to do, just like LeBron, is he's going to be evaluating this roster during the early part of the season, and Rondo, like LeBron, will be able to give a list to Frank Vogel about who needs to stay and who needs to be bought out or traded in order for them to be a championship roster, given that they are one of the most aged rosters in the NBA. So this is perfect. Don't worry about him getting on the court. That doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. You got guys you can put on the court. It's about being able to evaluate the roster as well as the game plan. That's part of the reason why I love Rajon Rondo, is because of that.
I agree. I tweet this out that they need to go ahead and just sign D Wade, have him compete with Kent Bazemore as the first chair high five fist pump guy, and just have the whole banana boat there and see if they can get this chip.
Yeah. So up next, this is something you were really into. We talked about quarterback battles. Well, several got settled over the last week. First was in New Orleans.
Crazy.
Jameis Winston wins the starting job for the Saints week 1 over Taysom Hill, about to eat some W's. What do you think is the number one reason why Jameis won this starting spot over Taysom?
He's a better quarterback. I mean, that's just point blank, period. I mean, Taysom is a good gadget guy. this is what's more telling to me about all of this, if anything. Taysom Hill's been there his entire career. He's been underneath Peyton's system. He understands the schematics, and he's played on the second team. He's been the quarterback, blah, 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 blah. Jameis walked up in there and took his job. That should tell you something about Taysom Hill at quarterback. So I don't have a reason to believe that he's going to get the job. Now, Taysom is a ridiculous athlete.
Yeah.
I just don't think that he has enough to be quarterback.
I mean, shoot, with what they have going on right now, Taysom needs to focus on being a wide receiver because you're going to be missing Michael Thomas for the first month or two of the season, and he's not going to be 100% even when he does come back. You have Jameis out there throwing to guys that you've never heard of before, who you're starting to hear about, like Marquez Callaway, who actually I lost a bet, I think, in that game to you, right? $5. He did not throw an interception.
You're welcome.
Two tutties to Marquez Callaway.
That was when he actually solidified his starting job, which I told you was
But you could see if you've watched Jameis before and watched him in that game, you could see the decision making. You could really see the gears turning in terms of
the
really
maturity,
evaluating the maturity.
You
could just see it.
The maturity at that position, exactly.
Right. So I was happy to see that. And with that, you had in Denver, Teddy Bridgewater winning the starting job over Drew Lock, who I dropped from my dynasty team after that happened. What would you say is the number one reason why, outside of being a better quarterback, why Teddy Bridgewater beat out Drew Lock?
I think I think it goes honestly right over there to the better quarterback piece of it. But Teddy was going to be the franchise quarterback of the Vikings. He had it. Like, he was looking like he was going to be something until that horrific knee injury happened. So I don't think his mind didn't go anywhere, and he looked like a player that's capable for it. And for them, looking at their schedule, the Broncos actually look like a playoff team.
They're going to be a problem. Yeah.
They're going to be a problem. So for them, all they need to do is do enough to get themselves into the playoffs, in which I think they can with Bridgewater more than they can with Drew Lock.
Yeah. Again, in this instance, and this tends to happen, experience, maturity, poise, and decision making won the job, and it should. I mean, really, no matter what the job is, if you have that over your opponent who you're competing against, even if it is a teammate, you should win the job. So I think that's a big part of the reason. Now, his arm isn't as big as Drew Lock, but he won't take as many bad chances as Drew Lock either.
It's going to be this. Because looking at their schedule, they play the AFC North and the NFC East this season. That's their matchups outside of their conference and their division with Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. So it's a little favorable if you really think about it.
I mean, combined, I think this Denver team, can definitely compete in that division. But of the four quarterbacks, he's the least good, in my opinion. I would put Carr over him, and anybody would put Herbert and obviously Mahomes over him as well. But you do have that disadvantage. But overall, this is a solid Denver Broncos team. They're kind of like the Vikings of the AFC. They're just solid pretty much everywhere. Even though there might be a few questions at quarterback, they're just solid, just B+ everywhere.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So, well, as usual, we appreciate y'all joining us here on Unfair Sports, where we are taking a pensive approach to the sports conversation.
Pensive.
Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the follow button on Spotify, rate us and review us, and give us 5 stars. You think we deserve it? Just give us 5 anyway.
Gifted.
And so, with that, thank you, Mike, Bob, and Wendy, for doing what y'all do best on the back end sides and everything. For my co-host, Jimmy, we'll see some changes or whatnot coming this season. I'll have all of that stuff together and announced once we talk about NFL preview. We got an NFL preview show coming next week. Prepare for the NFL season coming up. Yeah, we got Labor Day weekend, which is going to be college football. Got a lot of work to do. I've been started mine. I need to go ahead and finalize who I'm going to pick for my Super Bowls and see if my Buccaneers can do it again.
We know the Ravens won't be there. So leave them out of this discussion.
I don't know.
Not happening.
You think.
No chance.
You think.
No chance.
You think. All right, we'll see. But with that, we'll chop it up with y'all in a few days.
Peace.